on quality assurance, best practices, and tips. We really appreciate your time. We know your time is valuable, and we hope to provide you with a lot of great tactics, strategies, and best practices that you can take back to your agency today and start either developing a quality assurance program or building out your existing quality assurance program. I'm pleased to be joined by my colleagues Sherrill Ornberg and Nathan Lee from Denise Amber Lee Foundation. I'll introduce them here shortly in our vision. We'll go through the importance of quality assurance, and Sherrill will take you through an overview of the new APCO NENA ANSI-approved quality assurance standards. We'll also talk about tools that can help you develop your quality assurance program and improve that. Some evaluation templates that are available for free, as well as some quality assurance software tools that are available, and a case study as well. Just a brief introduction. My name is Patrick Botz. I'll be your host today. I'm the Director of Workforce Optimization at VPI. I've been with the company for 12 years and have worked with hundreds of various public safety customers throughout North America and the world, implementing quality assurance programs and recording systems, phone, radio, text messaging recording systems, and so forth. And I also co-authored a book recently called The High Performing PSAP. It's a quality assurance and NG911 recording guidebook. And if you'd like a copy of it, if you haven't read it already, feel free to shoot me an email here, and I'll get one sent out to you next month. If you're not familiar with VPI, we've been in the recording and quality assurance space for over 20 years now. Our roots are in public safety recording. We have over 600 customers just in North America alone, and then throughout the world, even more than that. And we've been actively involved in the next generation 911, the ICE committees, the ICE 6, the ICE 8 for logging and recording, and a long-standing APCO NENA partner as well. And all of our R&D and support is based here out of the U.S., and we're very proud to be an American company. Now I'd like to introduce my colleagues who are joining us today. Nathan Lee, he's the president of the Denise Amber Lee Foundation, which he founded in 2008. He's really the driving force behind so many improvements in public safety since starting this initiative relating to 911 procedures, training, and quality assurance. He's an acclaimed trainer. If you've had the pleasure of joining his training sessions, you know how fantastic he is. He's also a consultant and speaks at quite a few of the national, international, and regional conferences. We're also pleased to be joined by Sherrill Ornberg. She serves as the board of directors of the Denise Amber Lee Foundation, and she functions as the quality assurance director of the foundation. She's also a senior consultant and partner of PSAP Concepts and Solutions. She's a registered public safety leader and emergency number professional. Her emergency communications career began in 1970 and includes police, fire, and EMS dispatching, supervision, and 911 coordination. In addition to her last position as executive director, which she's held for more than 20 years. As the executive director of a multi-jurisdictional, multi-discipline PSAP in the Chicagoland area, she was responsible for providing general management, overall policy, directions, and fiscal control of the $5.5 million budget with a staff of 50 employees. She's also the past president of APCO, Illinois APCO, and served in various elected chapter positions from 1985 through 2014. As you can see, she's got quite a colorful background and was also very involved in the quality assurance standard initiative that she'll be reviewing. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Nathan, who will take you through the story and the founding of Denise Amber Lee Foundation.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Really appreciate the opportunity that VPI has allowed the foundation to partner with. And And I really appreciate everyone for taking the time to be on this webinar today. It's become such a hot topic and should be a hot topic in the 911 industry, and that's quality assurance and how important it is, and why hopefully every 911 center in the country within 5 years will have quality assurance of some form or fashion. And we're going to kind of go over a lot of that today. And what I want to do is just kind of give some of the folks on here a background of the story of my wife and why the Denise Amber Lee Foundation even exists. I'm sure a lot of you that are on here are familiar with it, but I just wanted to do a quick overview again. And the reason I wanted to do that is because I think if quality assurance was in place in this 911 center back in 2008, I really believe that I wouldn't be here today. Denise would be, and So what I want to do, Denise was kidnapped and raped and murdered back on January 17, 2008 by a man named Michael King, who was a complete stranger, who police believe that it took place around 14:30, that he came to our house around 2:30 in the afternoon and took Denise from our house, leaving our two little boys in the house alone. The city of Northport is situated about halfway between Tampa and Fort Myers on Florida's west coast. And Northport has their own police department, but they're only a secondary PSAP. They just dispatch law enforcement. Sarasota County is the main PSAP in that area, who answers all the wireless 911 calls. And ironically enough, that made this story, I think, more tragic and also more popular on a national level, was just the fact that Denise's father, Rick Goff, was a sheriff's sergeant with the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office at the time, and still is currently to this day, which is one of the agencies that was involved in this, and actually the agency that made the biggest mistake that could have saved my wife's life. So there was a total of 5 911 calls made on that day, one for myself, which was when I came home and found my two little kids, Noah and Adam, home alone, and Denise wasn't there. The second call was actually made by Denise herself at 18:14 that evening from the captor's phone in the back of his green Camaro. It came in as a Phase 1 911 call. They were only able to get a tower location, so there was no lat long, no Phase 2, and so they were not able to get the exact location or an estimated location of where Denise was. But another 16 minutes later, probably the most critical 911 call out of all of them was made by a woman named Jane Kowalski, who was at a stoplight right at the Charlotte County and Sarasota County line and saw what she thought was a child screaming in the back seat and banging on the window. They proceeded after the stoplight. She took off from the light. The Michael King got behind her, and she calls 911, which got routed to Charlotte County Sheriff's Office because they just crossed into Charlotte County. Now, a call taker of 15 years took that call, realized it was Denise based on the description that the caller gave of the person driving the vehicle and the vehicle's description. And at that moment, she stands up and yells that info to the two radio dispatchers across the room. Now, the call taker, because she was a 15-year veteran at the time, and there was no quality assurance procedure, there was a very lackluster level of accountability and supervision in that center at the time. She had a history of writing things down on paper because she started on cards early in her career, and she was not held up to a standard of having to type things into CAD in real time, and that started becoming an issue in that comm center with her other coworkers. The dispatchers were getting fed up over time that she wasn't doing that, and that she was shouting information or writing things down and passing it to the dispatchers in the comm center. And I guess that because of the chaos, because this went from nothing in a few hours to one of the largest manhunts in Southwest Florida history that actually involved a daughter of one of their own, because of the chaos in the 911 center, those two dispatchers basically told her to put in a call into CAD and then we'll dispatch it. And the call taker never entered a new call for service into CAD. She entered an update into the existing BOLO call that was already open for Denise's disappearance. No one saw it, the dispatchers never saw it, and no one was ever dispatched regarding that 911 call. And so Michael King then drove another 4 miles down the road, pulled off on a barricaded street that was under construction, and takes Denise out of the car, shoots her, and then buries her in a shallow grave. Luckily, Michael King was seen leaving that same road a few hours later and he's spotted entering southbound I-75, where he's later arrested by a Florida Highway Patrol trooper, and he was later convicted in 2009 and is currently sentenced to the death penalty and is on death row. So, you know, one of the other things that was very interesting in this case was, you know, it took almost 2 full days to find Denise. She was finally located, and obviously all the evidence that they found was very critical in getting him convicted of the death penalty. So after realizing all of this happened over the weeks and months that ensued after this happened, and really getting motivated and inspired by not only our local community, but mainly from your industry, the 911 industry. Here, getting letters, emails, Facebook, MySpace messages in support and expressing their apologies for what happened and how the 911 system let us down and let Denise down. I really wanted to do something to give back and to help the industry. I learned of a lot of the challenges that the industry faces, from training standards to a lack of standards with quality assurance, and a lot of the technological advances, or a lot of the technological issues that you all face every day as far as cell phone location and other things. So I was inspired and wanted to do something positive to turn this negative tragedy into a positive, so I decided to form the Denise Amber Lee Foundation. And we currently have a national board of directors from all over the country. And as you heard, Sherrill is one of those board of directors, and we're just really happy and thrilled to see the difference that Denise has made over the last few years. And in all honesty, that wouldn't have been possible if the 911 industry wouldn't have allowed us to do that. And so I'm extremely grateful to have the opportunity, not only today, but to travel the country like we do, teaching this story and trying to do anything we can to help. But our mission statement is to support and promote public safety through uniform training, standardized protocols, defined measurable outcomes or quality assurance, and technological advances to the 911 system. And as I just mentioned, we really want to be that driving force and be that emotional driving force, because we've seen the power of her story and how it can be used in a positive way. So as I mentioned a little bit before, I think our vision and our partnership vision with VPI, and I know Sherrill and myself and other members of our foundation, we really envision to see every PSAP employing quality assurance processes within 5 years. And I think that's an achievable goal. I think it's such a hot topic now, and it's extremely important, not only, as Sherrill's going to get into, not only for just trying to prevent these types of tragedies from happening and identifying, as Gordon Graham would say, those risky behaviors and identifying risky habits, but it's also a great tool to use for the positive and to tell the people in a comm center how amazing they are and how well they're doing, because that's not happening enough. And all the negative that they have to deal with, it's really important that a comm center focuses on those things that they actually can control, and that is, you know, making sure they're recognizing their greatest resource, which are the people, the telecommunicators answering 911 calls. But some of the other services and some of the other programs that the foundation has been trying to do and has been doing over the last few years, we do training classes across the country. We've developed a 4- and 8-hour training course, and we're actually in the process of developing some other ones that we're teaching across the country. As Patrick mentioned, we do attend all the national conferences and many state conferences and regional conferences, telling the story and talking about other hot topics as far as like hiring the right people, quality assurance, and teamwork, different things like that. But this new program that we're launching now that Sherrill has taken on is to try to help and consult with 911 centers in helping them develop a quality assurance procedure program or improving an existing program that they already have, and based around that new quality assurance ANSI standard that came out this past April. So like I said, I'm really honored and privileged to have the opportunity to be here today. Once again, I want to thank VPI, but I'm going to pass it over now to Sherrill, who has now become a very close friend of mine. She is a member, like I mentioned, of our board of directors. I got to meet Sherrill many years ago, probably 5 or 6 years ago, when I attended the Illinois APCO conference and was a speaker. And we, over the next few years, started working more and more together on the importance of quality assurance. And I recognize her passion for trying to do anything she can to help this most important industry on the planet, in my opinion. So, Sherrill, it's my honor and privilege to introduce you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nathan. That was very kind. I'd like to start out telling everyone a very interesting incident that occurred that I think speaks strongly to our topic today. There is a dispatch center that I'm aware of that on this particular day had both call taker and dispatcher being the same person. While they had multiple TCs on duty, they did both tasks of the call taking and dispatching. And a call came in for a house fire, and the gentleman explained his address, and the call taker then immediately dispatched the responding fire units. They got on the scene, and they were able to save part of this gentleman's house and rescue him from the second floor bedroom. The fire chief was so pleased with how well this call had gone and how well his staff members had handled the fire scene that he actually took the time to contact the PSAP and say, "You guys did a great job. Thanks for being a partner with us." Well, this just doesn't happen very often, at least not in my experience, especially if you're a separate PSAP and not attached to either directly a police department or a fire department. We're sort of the invisible part of the public safety triangle. No less important, we just are not visible. So the chief called, and this day there happened to be an acting supervisor who was really pleased that the chief took the time to actually commend the task that had been done. So he congratulated the call taker dispatcher, and he wrote a little email and sent it to the off-duty supervisor. Off-duty supervisor was equally pleased. You know, this is a feather in his cap for his shift to actually get a verbal commendation from the fire chief. Again, not something that happens very often. So he sent back to the call taker dispatcher and the shift as a whole, "Great job, guys. Really made us proud." And copied it to the deputy director. Deputy director was even more pleased. He thought, well, this is really good. You know, when things work well and the public safety entities all come together, said, this is a great thing. I'm really, really pleased. So he sent a more formalized congratulations back to the call taker dispatcher and copied the director. Director sent a formal congratulatory letter to the call taker dispatcher, actually came in and said, you know, you did a great job in front of the peers. Couldn't have gone any better. We're really proud. And at the next director's meeting, he informed his bosses of this particular situation. And the board said, you know, next time we have a meeting, why don't you bring that person in, because we'd like to show our appreciation for a job really well done. Has this ever happened in your PSAP? Wouldn't you be proud? Wouldn't you be excited? There's just one problem. Nobody listened to the tape. My house is on fire. I'm at 123 Main Street. I am handicapped, and I am trapped in the northeast corner of my house on the second floor. Please send help. At no time did the call taker dispatcher ever tell the responding units that they had a trapped individual who was handicapped and precisely where in the house that person was. Only by the grace of God did the fire department find this gentleman and get him out of his house safely. Now, the person certainly should not only not have received all these congratulatory messages, emails, and commendations. They should have been disciplined, at the very least. This was a horrible mistake. And had the media gotten a hold of this, this could very easily have been on 2020 or Dateline if this had gone wrong and the gentleman had not survived. And they played back the tape and they went, oh my gosh. A very serious change. Next, please. All the training in the world is useless if the professional telecommunicator isn't being continuously monitored and reinforced for proper procedures. As far as I'm concerned, management or supervisor, senior management, could be standing on the operations floor right next to a TC who is taking a call and be totally unaware of how the incident is being handled, because the information is going into the headset, so only one side of the conversation can be heard. So if you are not doing quality assurance, you do not know what your people are doing. You have no way of knowing what your people are doing. Next, please. Why quality assurance? First thing, to assure that proper protocols and procedures are followed, because that will deliver consistent quality of service, establish credibility and accountability with our public safety partners, and highlight strong skills and abilities in your TCs, as well as identify weaknesses. Minimize risk. The defense against liability lawsuits is quality assurance, because the quote-unquote, "I don't know that was happening," is no defense. You will lose that case when there's quality assurance that you could have used but didn't. Assessing training effectiveness. There's a perfect example in my PSAP. We had a relatively new TC, and she just flew through training. And everybody was saying, this one's going to be a star. She's got everything covered. When we looked at the QAs, we found a strange anomaly. On domestics, she was forgetting consistently to ask about weapons. Huge officer safety issue. The rest of the call was textbook, but she forgot the weapons. So here is a targeted training issue for a singular employee, because quality assurance pointed that out. So we can make our employees better in the areas where they need to be more informed and better. Improve employees' motivation and reduction in turnover. So often, TCs are told what they are doing wrong, but seldom notified when they have done things well. Now, I realize fully that this is not a profession that gets a lot of accolades, but quality assurance is one way where you can consistently point out those who are doing the things well. Timely and consistent feedback boosts confidence and performance. Accolades for a job well done is a significant morale booster. Now, unfortunately, turnover in TCs is somewhere between 50 and 70%, which is a major negative impact on your staff, CTOs, budget, and organization as a whole. Next, please. Several quality assurance standards are required by organizations such as APCO, the American Society of Testing and Materials, CALIA, NECMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, of course NENA, and NFPA. All of them require some form of QA. Some are suggested, some are mandated. In the state of Illinois, EMD calls are mandated to be quality assured reviewed, but not police and not fire. But we're trying to fix that. Next, please. The NENA APCO 911 Quality Assurance Standard defines the recommended minimum components and best practices of quality assurance quality improvement program within the public safety communication centers. Recommended minimum requirements for the evaluation of call processing are intended to ensure a consistent, effective, and efficient level of service. This was a very collaborative effort. Next, please. By all of the people that you see here, it was an eye-opener for me to see the various organizations all come together for a common goal, to put this out, because quality assurance is so important. We had APCO, we had NENA, we had the International Academy of Emergency Dispatch, we had PowerPhone, and we had PSAP leaders from across the country, all working on this so that it would be seamless and easy to use for the PSAPs around the country. Next, please. The overview. This is a starting point for any size agency. We have done all the heavy lifting. The committee worked very hard to put together something that any agency could use, whether they had money or no money in their budget for it. It is absolutely free. It costs nothing to use it. It is voluntary, unfortunately, not mandatory. It is very easy to implement. It's a complete system for all call types. We have scoring templates in Excel for law enforcement, fire, and EMS, both in call taking and in dispatching. And then, of course, it's vendor and product agnostic. We wanted to make sure that it went out so that everybody could use it depending or not depending on what they have now. Next, please. The key sections. There's the general agency responsibilities, the QAE evaluator duties and responsibilities, the components of a QA system, review process requirements, performance review and evaluation procedures, the documentation criteria, the reporting criteria, the recommendations for improvement, feedback criteria, and action plans. And the objectives of the QA program are accountability, determining the areas of excellence and those of concern, mentoring, motivating improvements, regular feedback, helping retention, and document. The less is more principle just does not work in public safety communications. Next, please. Selecting your evaluators. These should be supervisors or managers, or possibly if you have a separate QAE, as in the larger organizations which can afford to have somebody there full-time just doing Qs. The selection is very important. The quality public safety professional who reviews telecommunicator work performance and documents an evaluation of the level of compliance with agency directives and standards. This person should know your agency's policies and procedures, front to back. They should be dedicated to your agency's advancement within the public safety community. They should be, without any doubt, and I cannot stress this strongly enough, someone who has integrity. They must be honest, fair, and ethical. No friendship discounts. Can't be, well, he didn't do this exactly right, but he's a real nice guy. Or, you know, that's the guy I went out last night with. Or the flip. I don't like that person, so I'm going to judge them more critically. That is unacceptable. And of course, they need to exhibit professional attitude in behavior as well as performance. Your quality assurance evaluator is expected to be thorough, consistent, and objective. Review of recorded calls and dispatches and rate them on the QA forms. The evaluation should be combined with reviewing CAD records and notes to confirm that all the necessary information was requested, collected, and entered accurately. The QAE is to provide timely feedback, and he or she is responsible for generating and disseminating QA reports as defined by your particular agency. Next, please. Okay, as a starting point, we are recommending 2% of all calls. Now, that may be overly burdensome to an agency that is large, so they may need to decide that it's going to be possibly something less arduous than the 2%. I mean, if you have 700,000 calls, that would be 1,400 QAs in a year, and that may be too burdensome for someone who does not have separate QAEs. So when you're setting this up, you want to select a random call or dispatch for evaluation. If it's a hang-up or other type of call that won't produce useful QA results, you need to select another one. However, if the QAE should never manipulate the call process by disregarding a call or dispatch that has gone wrong to secure one with a better score, because that will undermine the entire process. PSAP agencies on a normal business day should review about 2%, but again, if that's overly burdensome, then they can decide on a more realistic level of case review. The catastrophic loss, if you have exceptional loss of human life or significant dollar amount of property, then that's something you probably want to review as well, not as random selection, but as a defined and dedicated call. Also, the high acuity, emergency situations that require an elevated or atypical emergency response, such as service, may involve large-scale incidents that result in significant loss of life or property damage, or of such magnitude that they produce high-stress reactions in telecommunicators and early emergency responders, as well as the press. And that may be a key. If you think the press is going to be looking into this, it's something you want to review before they're knocking on your door or calling you on the phone. Next, please. Okay, setting up your forms. Again, we tried to make this as simple and objective as possible. The answers to questions are yes or no, refused, or non-applicable. So you determine the value point for each question. Next slide, please. Thank you. For each question, the more important the question, the larger the point value should be. Each category is scored separately based upon the percentage of total points for that group. A target of total score for each evaluation should ultimately be at least 90%. Though you may start with a lower threshold, such as 75%, and work up to this target in steps of 2 to 5% increases every 3 months until you hit that. That gives your staff time to acclimate to this new process. In the beginning, you may find the scores to be not what you would like them to be, but you want to give them time to improve, and if you have the feedback, they know what they're doing right, they know what they're doing wrong. It is highly recommended to thoroughly explain the QA process to your staff members prior to implementing the program. I cannot stress that enough. Don't want to just drop this in on them. You want to show them what you're going to be evaluating, how you're going to be evaluating it, so they have a sense of what their responsibilities are. The program will be better accepted when you start out selecting calls or dispatches that have positive results, so that the telecommunicators do not become apprehensive of the QA process. This is the one and only time that I would recommend that you select the calls, not necessarily in random fashion. The first experience with the QA system should be a good one. So you may have to look through a few calls to find, oh, that's a good one. I don't suggest manufacturing a call. Just start out on a good foot where the TC is getting a pat on the back. So sort of warm instead of cold pricklies. Next, please. Okay, setting up your forms, the evaluation result categories, you have exceeds requirements, so that excellent performance is promoted and noted promptly and recognized. Meets requirements, they're following your policy, they did what you expected them to do. Or needs improvement, and you want to have a prompt review turnaround and possible coaching where necessary and needed. The QA review identifies calls or incident processing issues that need improvement. An unacceptable QA score below the board should be signed by both the supervisor and the recipient. It is very helpful to have the TC review the audio of the call taking or the dispatching and grade the incident themselves. This methodology assists in making the conversion with the supervisor to be more objective and they're more productive. Dissemination. The TC should always receive a copy of their completed QA evaluation as soon as possible. Time is of the essence in making QA process a valuable learning tool. The quality assurance standard recommendation that the original evaluation should be placed in the employee's personnel jacket to be incorporated as part of their periodic annual or quarterly performance evaluations. If you did 2 calls per week times 52 weeks for each TC, that would give you 104 QAs for their performance evaluation at the end of the year, making it a far more objective process than a subjective one. Next, please. Calibration. I cannot stress how important calibration is. Whether you have 1 QAE or whether, in my case, I had 6 that happened to be the supervisors. They each had the responsibility for doing quality assurance on their shifts. QA evaluators need to be periodically assessed to ensure that they are being fair and equitable in their evaluation techniques. It is very important that management periodically review their evaluations to ensure fairness and consistency. Senior management should select a couple of call taking and dispatching incidents for review. Grade the incidents and then ask the QA or QAEs to do the same. If the scores do not match, discuss the discrepancy with the outlier. How did they come to that conclusion? And remind the evaluators that there is absolutely no room for opinions and friendship discounts. The questions are objectively answered with either yes or no. Never sort of, kind of, or maybe. Or the person's having a bad day, I'm going to give them a pass. I'm going to say they did what they didn't do. This will totally undermine your entire process. So it is so important that not only does senior management periodically sit down with the QAEs or QAE and say, okay, here, grade this, but randomly just go in there and grab one of their reviews and do it yourself and say, okay, this is done correctly, or need to talk to this QAE and get them right on the track where they belong. Calibration holds your team accountable with regular calibration sessions. The participants should be, of course, your QAEs, your supervisors, which may be one and the same, your managers, and possibly even your trainers. Calibration frequency, I would certainly start in the beginning with weekly, and then once you get everybody calibrated and they know that senior management is checking, then you can handle it monthly. And now I will turn it over to Patrick.
talking about improving the consistency, the fairness, the productivity, and the impact of your QA program. So I wanted to start it off first by going through a story. I was talking to a communication supervisor and asked them to kind of describe their typical QA workflow, how that looks like. And some of you may nod your head as I go through this, but first, they search through the CAD records, and then an emergency pops up. And as he kind of described it, he said, then we begin searching in the logging recorder, trying to find the calls, then getting distracted again, then return to the search in the recorder, and then they would burn their recordings to a CD and send those to quality assurance. Then the QAE, the quality evaluator, would score the call in one of the templates in a spreadsheet, and then the supervisor would receive a printout, and the call taker would receive instruction, often 2 to 4 weeks after the actual call took place. So some of you may be nodding your head that this may be similar to your workflow, but it is common to what we see today. So just wanted to go talk about 9 of the kind of benefits of using a QA software tool. Again, it's important to note that these tools, there's some fantastic spreadsheet templates available through the standard. Highly recommend starting with those. Unless you have a good foundation in your QA program, the tools will just they'll help you improve the efficiency and the effectiveness of your program, but you really need a solid foundation. So it's just important to note that you don't need these tools, but these just help with the efficiency. So one thing, the first thing important to note is that the QA software does work side by side with any logging recorder. So what we do is we record a copy of the console audio, and then you get to choose up to 3 monitors you like recorded as well. So it's a total pixel size. It usually is about 3 monitors, so it could be the CAD screen, the mapping screen, and another screen. And you'll actually see that when you play back, when you're evaluating the call, you actually get to see the screen video. It plays back like a movie. So you can see how call takers are navigating through the CAD system and so forth. So gives you another perspective, and it will continue recording screens even after, during the wrap time, even after the actual call audio has ended. Then this is the real secret sauce. This is what really helps improve the efficiency. Is what we do is, as we're recording the console audio and screens, we actually tag incident information from the CAD system directly to those recorded calls. So things like incident ID, incident location, the incident type is obviously a big one for quality assurance, right? Because there's these high acuity, high priority calls that you might want to evaluate 100% of those types of calls, or maybe in your jurisdiction you're required to do 100% of things like cardiac arrest or 100% of domestic violence calls. Now you can easily just search by those incident types, or a lot of people also just use this to find incidents quicker, searching by incident ID. They'll go in there and just type in the incident ID and pull up all the calls related to that incident. So anything that shows up in the CAD system, we just look at a copy of the CAD database. So we're not integrating directly to the CAD, but just a mirrored copy of the database allows us to passively capture that information while we're recording the calls. So virtually any CAD system it works with. Another thing is we've built in, and these, almost all of these capabilities were designed by our customers. So they said, hey, we'd love the APCO NENA standard QA forms in this software. So we built them out of the box. You can start with those. You can tweak them, adjust them, change the point scales, the ratings, and so forth. But at least you have a great starting point. There's 6 fantastic templates that are provided in the standard. There's the EMS for call taking, dispatching, law enforcement, and fire, both on call taking and dispatching. So you have a nice starting point there. And then using that CAD data or just a random rule, right? Because it could just be a random rule of 2% of all calls, that weren't hang-ups. Maybe they're over 30 seconds long. You can create business rules in the background to automatically schedule the calls for either your QAEs, if you have dedicated QAEs, or supervisors. Maybe you have a team of supervisors that do QA on other teams. First thing in the morning, they hammer these out. Essentially what they get is a to-do list. They don't have to go look into the recording system to look for the calls. It'll automatically serve them up. It'll tell them the type of call. If it's a rule that selected it, maybe it's a high priority call, it will let them know that as well if you'd like. And then it knows what type of call it is, so it'll pull up the appropriate QA form. So it'll pull up either the EMS, the fire, law enforcement, or you may have one just for non-emergency customer service calls. Some agencies have that as well. It'll pull up the form along with the audio and the screen. And just not having to go into the recording system to find calls, that'll easily double the evaluator productivity. At this point, I'd like to share a case study. So this is Hamilton County, Chattanooga, Tennessee. Tammy Chamberlain runs the quality assurance program over there. She does a fantastic job. We used to struggle to perform 90 QA checks a month. And now since they've implemented the QA software and the business rules to automatically schedule calls, we're now at 1,680 QA evaluations per month and keep increasing. So this is, more than 2,018 times of the number of evaluations they can perform each month, which is significant. And I'll show you kind of how they did that. So they're a larger agency with 130 telecommunicators, answer over 2,000 calls a day on average, and they do respond for law enforcement, fire, and EMS. So they're now at a point where they're reviewing at least 5 to 12 calls per dispatcher per month. And the kind of the secret sauce here is we put a business rule in place that says, you have 150 different CAD incident types, right? And what we want to do is we want to look at that incident type, and if it's EMS, bucket it into the EMS bucket. If it's a fire type, we'll put it in the fire bucket, and law enforcement put it in that bucket. And then what they do is they like to their goal is, and what they're doing is 7% of EMS, 7% of fire, 3% of police, and then a smaller amount of non-emergency calls. And those automatically get scheduled to the appropriate QAEs for evaluation. So as you can see, you imagine we kind of went through the workflow, having to go into the CAD system, find each of these types of calls would just take a lot of time just finding the calls. But now they can focus more on the actual quality assurance evaluation and the coaching. So a big portion, as Sherrill mentioned, of the standard focuses on delivering feedback in a timely manner, right? So this is critical so that people aren't making the same mistake over and over again. So if you're only doing a few quality assurance but you're not coaching till the end of the month, two things happen. One is they don't always remember those calls, and it's not as significant of a coaching impact. But the other thing is they could be making the same mistake over and over, right, until they get that coaching. So by Cheryl's suggestion of doing a few calls or a couple calls per week is a great one, and it gives more consistent feedback. One thing we've developed with our customers is these little tickers. It allows you to put metrics, quality assurance metrics or other metrics. Maybe it's number of calls processed, time to dispatch, speed of answer, right? We're gathering, those metrics from either the phone system, the console, or the CAD system, and you can put them into these tickers. But the key one here is the quality assurance score. And as soon as an evaluation is completed in the ticker, the call taker dispatcher is able to see their most recent QA score, and they can click on it, and they can then listen to their evaluated call and see the comments and everything. And if they'd like to, they can provide comments back. So they can provide, comments back to the evaluator, or maybe there's some sort of dispute or something, they can do that, and all of that is documented. So when you print out the form or put it into the records, all those comments are there as well. So it really helps with documentation, and then of course the timely feedback, so they can figure out what they did wrong and make those adjustments and corrections. So this slide talks to Sherrill's last point on calibration. It's critical that evaluators are calibrated. So if you have either supervisors or QAEs doing the evaluations, or some agencies even allow for call takers and dispatchers to do some self-evaluation as well, which can be valuable. This allows you to essentially select a call, and it's not going to won't be graded for an individual call taker or dispatcher, but use it for this calibration session. Everyone gets that in their to-do list. They now have to calibrate that within it. It'll tell them the due date of when it needs to be scored by, and then it allows you to pull up reports to see how people are calibrated, the different values, not only on an overall basis, but by different segments within the QA form, or most importantly, the individual questions, right? Because it's great, you could have a straight line across here. Everyone's calibrated overall, right, at let's say 90%. But if you look at the individual questions, are there discrepancies between the evaluators? And it's really important to look at the question level. So we provide really robust reporting around the calibration as well. Built-in coaching tools, so recordings and quality assurance evaluations tend to be fantastic tools to use in not only new hire training, but ongoing coaching. So we allow you to redact calls. You can use the screen recordings, the audio recordings as training clips, and redact parts, where there might be some sensitive information you don't want to share. And then this is a really nifty one that was came from feedback from a customer is, hey, we have these tickers. We'd love to be able to send messages to the tickers, and so what we allow you to do is add an action to each question in your QA form. So you can add an action, and an action might be just as simple as a message, right? That's kind of where it started. A message that pops up in the ticker that says, hey, you forgot to do this on your last QA that was just graded. Please remember to do this next time. And they have to click OK and acknowledge it. They can't say, you never told me to do that, because it's automated, right? The system's automatically sending that message out. Whatever message you type in below the question will automatically get delivered. It could also be a video, a PDF, an e-learning course for those of you who are maybe doing some e-learning. It can trigger that and send that out as well. So a great tool to standardize kind of the coaching across shifts, across supervisors. This will automatically happen. It's not to be used as a replacement for live coaching, but it's a supplement to that. And then in our latest release, we've also included a kind of real-time dashboard. So if you take your eye to the right here, you see flag call scheduled for QA review. And some people call this a dashboard. I call it a workspace. This is where you can start evaluating calls right from here. You log in, here's your to-do list. But we can also, since we are gathering metrics from the CAD system and the phone system, you can also display any type of metrics, trended over time. It could be, calls handled, or QA scores, or speed of answer, time to dispatch, whatever is important to your agency. Some agencies even put these up on as wall boards, kind of on TV monitors for others to see as well. So really nice customizable reporting. You can create a dashboard and push it out to all supervisors, and they get the same one relevant to their team and to what they focus on. So not everyone has to create their own. You just create one and push it out. And then kind of the last capability that we created, and we worked with Priority Dispatch on this. They have a team that does evaluations for other agencies, and they were looking for a way to improve efficiency. So we work with them just to put a playback button within their software, which will automatically play the file. I was talking to someone there at Prior Dispatch just at the APCO Atlantic show here this week, and they said, on average, it could take up to 14 minutes or so to do the evaluation, and 8 of that could be just finding the call in the system. So by kind of removing that time, and just having them play the call back right from AQUA, that's a great little app that we provide for any of those who may be using Prior Dispatch for either EMD and or police or fire. And to kind of close it out, wanted to just put this quote up from our customer, Matt Stillwell. He's a colleague of mine from the city of Edmond. A comprehensive QA process can not only expose if someone's not doing their job right, it can also expose whether or not the policies we have in place are in line with what we need to provide good quality service to all citizens, right? And Matt really stresses, doing quality assurance on all call types, not just EMD, because of, that's what citizens expect. They expect good service on all of the call types that we're handling. So thank you so much, and thank you, Nathan and Sherrill. Sorry I was on mute there for a little bit, but just really appreciate everyone's time, and I see there's a lot of great questions that have come in, and we'll go ahead and start answering some of your questions here. So what is the standard? What is the standard released in April? Where can I get it? So it's available if you just type in APCO NENA Quality Assurance Standard in Google. You will find it on the APCO website, and you can download it right there in PDF format if you'd like. Are we able to get a copy? Oh, sorry about that.
It's also available on the NENA website with the spreadsheets in Excel form. In APCO, they are in the PDF form.
Perfect. That's a great tip, though. So if you guys want to download the spreadsheet templates, which will kind of help you get started, or you can start that, use those as a starting point. You can visit the NENA site for that as well. So thanks, Sherrill. We will be sending you a recorded copy of the webinar, and also a copy of the PDF slides that you can use as well. So you'll receive those early next week. That was one of the questions. So this one's for Sherrill. Do you think it's necessary to have SOPs in place prior to starting a QA/QI program?
That is a great question, and the answer is absolutely yes. You can't grade someone, or you shouldn't grade someone, if the TC doesn't know clearly what your expectations are. In the new standard, there are sample criteria for scoring. And anyone who is interested, if they will email me very clearly, do they want law enforcement, do they want EMS, or do they want fire, or do they want them all? I will send them the whole packet in Excel along with the scoring criteria and how to customize the actual spreadsheets so that they fit with your agency. Not only what the questions are, but you can also change the numeric score for each question. Things that you think are more important, of course, have a higher score, less important, a smaller score.
Thank you, Sherrill. And I know we're at the top of the hour, but there are some fantastic questions that have come in, so we'll stay on for 5 more minutes. For those of you, you can stay with us. All right, this is for Sherrill as well. Our agency handles 400,000 calls annually. We're currently writing and updating our SOPs and QA program. The 2% of calls seems overly burdensome for us. How do we determine appropriate number or percentage of calls to evaluate?
Who's doing the evaluation? Is it a QAE or multiple QAEs, or are they offline supervisors?
So
would be my question.
Yeah, I'm not sure we'll get the answer to that right now, but
however,
go ahead.
Try 1%.
Okay, thank
you. Try 1%. For the larger agencies where it's overly burdensome, try cutting it in half. and see if that's possible. And if that's not possible, you'll have to make it something that works. And that's an individual agency issue. The 2% is a recommendation.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So I think you're right on. I mean, if you can do 1%, right, whatever that ends up being, at a minimum, at least one a week, right? So there is continuous feedback, but you definitely want to see if you can't get up to 1%.
And one a week would be, one a week per
low.
employee would be the absolute minimum.
That's the minimum, agreed. So.
And usually there's two parts to the call. You've got the call taking, and then you have the dispatching, which may or may not be the same person. So actually, from my perspective, it needs to be at least 2 per employee per week at an absolute minimum.
Great, thank you, Sherrill. On the QA forms, do you calculate the overall score based on an average of the section of scores, or as a percentage of total points earned or total point value?
Total point value. And it calculates it. It's actually, all of the calculations are in the spreadsheet for you. And again, the explanation document tells you how to standardize that. But you'll get a percentage for each of the sections and then a total percentage.
Great, thank you. Have you experienced or handled any union objections, Cheryl?
No. We were a union shop, and we were a union shop for 20-some years. Basically, we do not have a performance-based raise system, unfortunately, but it is what it is. So no, did not have any backlash from the unions. But again, you need to explain this to the staff before you implement it. And to go back to the first question, yes, you need to have your policies or your criteria clearly laid out so that your staff members know what the expectations are. And again, when we started back, 10, 12 years ago, we started at the 75th percentile. And there were some people that were just right there at the 75th. We said, okay, we're going to run this for 3 months, and we're going to show you, and the turnaround was very important here. Here's what you're doing right. Here's what you need to work on. Here's what you're excelling at. After the 3 months, it went from 75 to 80, and then 3 months later, it went to 85, and then 3 months later, it went to 90. We also, in a pretty elaborate frame, every month we put a list of every TC that had a consistent score for every QA at 96% or above. Because those are your stars. And you would be surprised. They want to see their name up there. So again, there's a way of giving somebody an accolade.
Fantastic, thank you. There's several questions on which CAD systems does the VPI QA software integrate with, and so we have probably 24 that we've integrated with. There's not one we haven't been able to so far, so we're just looking again at a copy of the database, which typically can be provided by either IT or the CAD vendor usually will help out with that as well. So we'd love to work with you on that and see if we might be able to help you tag CAD data to the recordings. And then here's a question. So what are your recommendations, Sherrill, for working supervisors that are online throughout the entire shift?
You have a very tough job. Absolutely. In my mind, working supervisors are the middle of the hourglass. You've got senior management above, and you have the TCs below, and everything filters through the working supervisor on the way up and on the way down. So hats off to the working supervisor. You are paramount to the wellness of your organization. Try and find a little time somewhere where senior management will allow you to unplug so that you can do your QA. And if you do, one a day, then at the end of the week, hopefully you will have some of them done, or that you could unplug and work at another console position that's quiet while you do your QAs. But no, it is not an easy position to do. And certainly if you had it automated, it would be much more easily handled than if you were trying to do it manually. One of the things that I was most impressed with VPI, and I'm not easily impressed, was their ability to work with any recording system you had. Because initially I said, well, when I heard about their software, I thought, well, that's great, but people are not going to be able to afford a new recording system. And I was most pleased to hear that this capability would work with any recording system that you might have in your PSAP.
Great, thanks, Sherrill. We'll have finish up here with one more question, and then what we'll do is we'll actually write a blog article with the questions and answers. We'll detail out the answers and send you guys a link to that article along with the PDF slide and the webinar. So this one it's a common one that comes up as well. We're using IAED for EMD medical, and can we use this software for police and fire? And absolutely, we have a lot of customers that do start out that way. You also can add the that playback button in the AQUA software if you use AQUA, so you'll be able to speed up the workflow for the EMD, and then you can just so you are evaluating police and fire efficiently, you can use those forms within the VPI software until perhaps you transition one day to all IAED if you'd like to. It's up to you. So that's a great question. And there's some more questions that have come in, but at this time, just wanted to thank Sherrill and Nathan for the fantastic information and just the passion that they have. It's so inspiring. And we're really excited to so you'll be seeing probably 911 QA every day, everywhere you go. We have nice lapel pins and things that we're going to be handing out at conferences, and we invite you to help us spread the word and join us in our passion for having every PSAP have a formal, consistent quality assurance program within the next 5 years. And thanks for your time. And again, we will follow up next week with more information if for those of you who are interested in either learning more about the services by Denise Amber Lee Foundation or our software tools. We're happy to help you out, and look forward to partnering with you. Thanks so much, and have a wonderful afternoon.